from Grade Level Guru, and I've got a bonus in focus episode of our podcast for you today. We're going to talk about what does learning to read actually start with. Believe it or not, if your 2-year-old is reading a book upside down or dancing around a book while they read, asking you to read the same story for the 27th time, you are actually right on track. This is early literacy. By the end of this article, or podcast, if you're listening, you're going to know and recognize what early literacy skills your child is developing. Let's dive in. So our brains are wired for speaking, not for reading. Learning to read is not a natural process like learning to speak, but oral foundation is the foundation for reading. The fact that oral language is the foundation for reading is behind what early literacy researchers call the million-word gap. The language foundation gap between children who are read to a lot versus a little or not at all. Literacy foundation begins when babies are read to, and the lack or presence of that foundation impacts them greatly by the age of 4 in pre-K. Learning to read is really a combination of a lot of foundational skills and knowledge working together. There are 4 things to consider. Number 1, a child must learn that the special shapes printed in black in their picture books are letters, not part of the illustration, which when read left to right, make the words of a story. This is print awareness. Number 2, a child needs to know the sounds of a language. English has 44 sounds. Happily, our brains are wired to learn this. This is called phonological awareness. Number 3, a child has to memorize which letters and combinations of letters represent the sounds, and then blend those small groups of sounds into pronouncing syllables. This, my friends, is phonics. 4, finally, children have to put this knowledge and skill to use in deciphering multisyllabic words with immediacy, without thinking, over and over and over again. This is called fluency. A note about hyperlexia. Some kids learn to read by merely being read to. These kids are hyperlexic, meaning that they are at least a bit gifted in this area. For us non-gifted kiddos, however, being read to builds print awareness, it builds vocabulary, it builds motivation, it builds a love for reading, but we don't just absorb all of the decoding skills we need to become fluent readers. We have to be taught. So let's take an inventory of the knowledge and ability you need to begin reading. Let's break down each item. Item number 1 was knowing the letters. This is called print awareness. First of all, how do you encourage print awareness? You trace your finger along the words when you read to your child. When you're reading that board book, point to the words as you read them. Knowing the letters is an interesting concept. Realize that to a baby being read board books or chewing on board books, everything on the page is the same. The ball, the puppy, the word ball, the word puppy are all simply shapes and colors on the page. So a baby and a toddler has to learn that the letters and the words on the page are not the same as the illustration. Babies and toddlers must learn that those black squiggly things are what is being read to them, and that they go in a particular order, left to right, top to bottom, not just willy-nilly. Everything on a flat page of a storybook is a shape of some sort, but the letters on the page and the stuff in the illustrations are not the same thing. And a 1, 2, 3-year-old is learning this when you read them board books and you point to the words while you read. That is print awareness. Number 2, we have to know all of the sounds in our language. This is called phonemic awareness. It's everything to do with your ears and listening. So phonemic awareness is the sounds that make up your language. It's all about hearing the language and its sounds. For example, the U with an umlaut sound, roughly U in like American English, it doesn't exist in American English. So a baby listening to American English or like reading American English books is not going to learn the U with an umlaut sound. English has 45 sounds, fewer than German, which has 56, more than French, which has about 36. In English, including consonant digraphs like TH and SH, there are 25 consonant sounds. As for vowel sounds, single and digraph, there are around 20. So that's a total of like 45 sounds. In order to read, our brains have to do a lot with phonemic awareness. So how can you build phonemic awareness? Children practice this through rhyming, alliteration, clapping out words by syllable, or sound blending activities. By sound blending activities, I mean like I say d, a, g, and I ask a kid, what word did I just say? And the kid says dog, okay? So phonemic awareness is everything to do with the sounds of a language and knowing them. It's all about hearing in your ears. Okay, step 3, phonics and word recognition. Phonics is pronouncing syllables and monosyllabic words. It requires print awareness and it requires phonemic awareness. A child has to work with a lot of memorized knowledge to practice phonics. Let's take inventory of exactly what a child must have memorized and learned in order to practice phonics. Number 1, they have to have memorized 52 letter shapes. That's 26 uppercase and 26 lowercase, and which ones correspond to each other, and what the letter is called. 2, children have to have memorized all of the sounds and the names of the letters that go with those sounds. So your kids don't just have to memorize the shape of the letter, what it looks like. They have to memorize the sound it represents. Number 3, now they don't have to just memorize single sound combinations from single letters. They have to do digraphs as well. So children have to memorize vowel digraphs like AI or OA and their corresponding sounds. There's about 15 or 20 vowel digraphs in the English language. And it's the same with consonant digraphs. There's like 12 really common ones, but children also have to memorize the consonant digraphs. Common ones are like CH, SH, WH, CK. They might as well be letters for themselves. So with all of this knowledge now, that list of 4 things the kids had to memorize, that was a lot. With all of this knowledge, now our child is ready to apply it by pronouncing simple single syllable words and single syllable nonsense words. I'm talking words like cat, hat, dog, sun. Nonsense words, vap, tob, zog, blug. Nonsense words are critical in practicing phonics because they ensure that our kiddo is not memorizing words, but actually reading them. We want our little reader actually sounding out words, not memorizing them, and not guessing after a letter or two with context. This step is also the very visible part of learning to read. It's the sounding out phase. A kiddo knows that the sound b, o, and t, well, I read that wrong. A kiddo knows that the sound for b, o, a, and t are b, o, t, but now they have to blend those sounds together and recognize that as the word boat. Word recognition means that when a child sees the letters S-U-N together, they know that the sounds are s, n, and they have to recognize this as the word sun. Vocabulary development also becomes really important here. Step 4, fluency. Fluency is deciphering multisyllabic words with immediacy, without thinking, over and over and over and over again. I'm reading this fluently. If you're reading this fluently. If you're listening, you're just listening. We're not sounding out anything. Your brain is on autopilot, taking in word after word after word, using so little brain power that your brain is easily able to put these words into ideas. I'm not thinking about the words, I'm thinking about the ideas. I'm not sounding out the sounds, I'm thinking about the ideas that those words are building. Perfect grade level fluency by the end of second grade is absolutely critical. Teaching students to read ends in the second grade. A child must have completely mastered reading by the end of second grade. There is no more how to read instruction. Only comprehension and vocabulary development remain. For a student who has not completely mastered reading, starting the third grade is like failing algebra and being pushed along to calculus with whatever tidbits of algebra knowledge you manage to pick up. As a matter of fact, reading instruction in the second grade shifts to decoding multisyllabic words. So being behind with learning to read, quickly snowballs, and not in a good way. By the end of second grade, children must be done learning to read, and they must be ready to read to learn, because now it's all about comprehension and vocabulary development. So the bonus part of reading is comprehension. Comprehension and vocabulary building is the real objective of reading. And your brain can only step over to comprehension when you are fluently reading or being read to. When they are read to, children begin to understand the narrative structures. They understand that stories have characters. Characters have problems. Characters have personalities. Characters learn things. Characters resolve their problems. They also learn that reading and being read to is fun. Children who are read to also grow their vocabularies. Learning vocabulary of things you encounter every day, like breakfast, milk, and plates, is one thing. But unless you have narwhals in your bathtub, how else is your child going to learn what a narwhal is if you don't read the board book, What is a Narwhal? The book, The Pout Pout Fish, will teach your child words like out, grimace, dreary, weary, cheer, smile. Goodnight Moon has vocabulary words like moon, stars, cows, mice, comb, brush, bowl, mittens, house. Linguists say that we must be exposed to a word at least 14 times before we incorporate it into our receptive vocabulary. That is not our working vocabulary. That is merely our receptive vocabulary. That's early literacy. All you have to do to encourage early literacy skills is to read to your children more than one book a day, point to the words as you read, play with rhymes, play with alliteration, clap out syllables. So when your child is asking you to read Goodnight Moon for the 27th time, this means that they love when you read to them. This means that they love this story. This means that they know the words. It's familiar. Children are surrounded by unfamiliar things and can find very familiar books comforting. Or when they're dancing around the Pout Pout Fish on the floor, acting out and reading it upside down, well, that also just means that they love literacy. Reading. It also means that they love reading.